Hey everyone, and welcome to the Isles House mock draft edition. Today we got Prospect on, we got Mr. Mike Bartner here, and our own Rocco at Pizza Sports Guy on Twitter. Um, and we're going to get it rolling here right away and get started. So, with the first overall pick in the 2025 draft, I'm going to let Rocco take it away.
Well, first off, I want to thank the hockey gods for giving us the first overall. I want to thank our beautiful commissioner, Gary Bettman, after just stealing the All Star game out from under us, rigging the lottery, and now we have the number one pick. I am running up. The Don is calling me from San Jose. No. Getting calls from Chicago. Click. Matthew Schaefer, Erie Otters. Welcome to the island, buddy.
Nice.
And listen, I've heard the Misa arguments. I've heard the Hagen stuff. He's from Long Island, this and that. To me, Matthew Schaefer's ceiling is higher than the rest. He has the potential to be an elite defenseman. He has the potential to compete for the Norris every season in his prime, I believe. So he's the pick. New York Islanders, Matthew Schaefer.
Matthew Schaefer is now a New York Islander. And drafting at number 2, we have prospect Don going for the San Jose Sharks.
I believe it's going to be Michael Misa. I think they're going to be running to their phone in their draft room to make this call and call Gary Bettman. I just think that Michael Misa would be a fantastic fit in their top six. I mean, Sharks are loaded if you look at that prospect pool. If he goes to the NCAA with his brother at Penn State, Luke Misa, maybe Porter Martone goes there, or he goes to the NHL level, which I know that he wants to. I think that would be a great fit. Like I said, the Sharks could play this guy at center or wing. I think that they said this week that they wanted to play Will Smith kind of more at center. And if they do choose to do that, I would be terrified to be a former or a player playing against Misa and Celebrini on that same line. Or if they want to pair him up with Igor Chernyshov, who is his teammate, then they can also do that. So yeah, I think Michael Misa is the pick here.
Okay, Michael Misa, you are a San Jose Shark. Next on the clock, we got Mike Bartner picking for the Chicago Blackhawks.
Okay, first, I want to say thank you for having me for this mock draft. This is where the real draft starts at third overall. I think we all agree that in some type of order, those two guys are going to go in the top two. I am going to go with Porter Martone for the Chicago Blackhawks. Give Connor Bedard his winger for the next basically 15 years. He's fallen a little bit, but not too much outside of like the top five or anything like that. He is that blend of both sides. It's 6'3", already like 200 pounds and high level skill. 98 points this year in the OHL. I think that the skating concerns are definitely somewhat valid, but I think that he's going to be good enough at the NHL level. So when you combine the skill, the size, playing with Connor Bedard, I think you got to do that, especially when you look at the other guys in this range are mostly centers with the way that Frank Nazar has looked in Chicago, especially at the World Championships. He was amazing. I think you go winger here, and I think Porter Martone is the clear choice in terms of wingers.
Okay, we got our first, I would say, minor surprise of the Isles House mock draft. And that brings us to the 4th overall pick, the Utah Mammoth with their selection.
Well, first off, the Utah Mammoth want to say we were jumping, high-fiving, and screaming the second the Chicago Blackhawks picked Porter Martone because we are more than happy to select James Higgins at number 4. Welcome to Utah. Once rated the number 1 guy in this draft. He did fall. He does seem to be in that second tier now. High skill, speed, IQ, little bit small. That's kind of the knock on him. In the modern day NHL, that doesn't bother me that much. Honestly, I think you could get away with it. And I project him to be more of a Logan Cooley type player, I think is fair. And who better to learn from? Now he's on your team. So, James Higgins, you are the first draft pick since Utah's been named the Mammoth.
And I'm sure the Long Island kid cannot wait to get out to Salt Lake City.
27, he's on the island, but the first few years he's in Utah.
Yes, he is. And now we go over to Nashville, back over to Prospect Don. He'll make the 5th overall pick. in the draft?
I think that in this selection, a lot of the players that they wanted are off the board. I think that they would go with James Haggins here. So I'm going to take another center that I think that could project as a center, Caleb Desnoyers. He has been on a run. I think he's one of the best defensive players in this class, forward wise. He has a higher upside and a really good playmaking shot and vision combo, in my opinion. This guy could be a light version of a Patrice Bergeron or a Jonathan Tays-esque player. He is one of the best personalities in the entire class. Very funny guy. I think if he continues to play well, I mean, he's playing at the Mem Cup right now. So, if he gets that signature moment, I think people are going to want him on the Blackhawks too. So, I think this is just a best player available pick for a guy that has been on the top of this class for a very long time. Maybe not this year, but based on the players that have been in this class, he's always been one of the top players skill wise. Maybe not a top of the draft boards, but this guy can play.
Okay. Well, I'm glad he has a sense of humor because I think they will need that in Nashville, given what they've been through in the last year, looking over some of those contracts. Okay.
Yeah.
Mike Bartner with the 6th overall pick, who goes to the Philadelphia Flyers?
I think you got to go center here, and I think Anton Frundell probably is the best center remaining in this draft. When looking at him this season in the Swedish second-tier league, I believe he had the highest points per game of all time, ahead of guys like William Nylander and David Pastrnak. Playing against grown men, he already looks like a grown man. He's like 6'1", 200 pounds, a very heavy guy with a damn good shot. So I think for Philadelphia, although I probably would have rather had Caleb Desnoyers given his like two-way game to play with the Matvei Michkov, kind of balance them out. I think you still go center here. I think Frundell is the pick, and he has the skill and the size to be your number one center potentially in Philadelphia.
They definitely need a center in Philadelphia. So, Frundell, I hope you like cheesesteaks. Now, moving on to 7th, who are we taking, Boston Bruins?
Well, a lot of debate here at 7. A lot of options. You got Radim Murtka, big defenseman. Might remind some people of Chara Light over in Boston. Got Roger McQueen, another big boy, might play that Boston style. But this is one of my favorite players in the draft. I am going to select Jake O'Brien. High IQ, good passer. Look at the name O'Brien. I mean, that's going to be hanging in every Boston firehouse. Nice frame, jersey. Fits perfectly. Just sounds like a Boston guy. Jake O'Brien's the pick. And honestly, I'm jealous of Boston. I love this player.
Okay. And after that, we go all the way to the Pacific Northwest, where the Seattle Kraken will be making their selection by Prospect Don, who should also note that this player will be coached likely by Lane Lambert. So make sure he's a good one.
Well, that's a good point there. And wow, Jake O'Brien to to Boston Bruins. I like that a lot. But Radim Murka is going to stay in Seattle. The Seattle Thunderbirds star defenseman, who is a towering 6'6", is going to stay in Seattle. I love this guy. He is His player comp was Moritz Seider, which I loved that for him. He wants to be the best Czech defenseman of all time. This guy has played versus pros for a very long time. He got to play against Jaromir Jagr. He said he was slippery. I just think that this would be a really good pick. There's only been a couple drafts. I think every draft in 15 years has had two defensemen in the top 10, and I don't think that that trend is going to stop. He is going to be the second defenseman off the board, in my opinion. I just think his talent is really good. He's a really good, he has really good offensive upside, and I don't think that he's really tapped into that at the WHO. So he's going to be somebody that I think is going to go in this range, maybe 9, maybe 10, but he's going to be in a top 10 pick.
Okay. So now we go to Buffalo and Mike Bartner. It is your turn to tell me who's going to be enjoying some wings at number 9.
Yeah, I can't lie. I'm furious that he took Redeem Merca. I think that's the perfect pick for the Buffalo Sabres, considering they have Dahlin, Byram, Power, and Samuelson all being lefties. So this is a really tough spot for the Buffalo Sabres. A guy that I really like, though, is Victor Eklund, also playing from the same team as Anton Frundell. In their draft year, he had 31 points in 42 games this year. Great season in the second tier. When looking at him, of course, you think of his brother, who has developed very good in San Jose, already is like a 60-point guy. He is a little bit smaller than his brother, but I think that he definitely has more tenacity than his brother in terms of winning board battles, getting physical. We saw him at the World Juniors. He was great there. So, yeah, I think Vic Eklund, they maybe don't exactly need wingers or forwards in Buffalo, but I think the gap between him and who the next right-handed defenseman is, like probably a Logan Hensler, I think that that gap is too big to ignore that. So I'm going with Victor Eklund.
Victor Eklund it is in Buffalo. And now moving on to number 10. I can't really think of much fun in Anaheim other than Disneyland. So I guess this might be quite boring.
Well,
Who's
I'm
going to
glad you
Anaheim?
dropped. I'm glad you dropped Disney because you know they like their movies out in Anaheim.
Yes,
Had a
they
movie
do.
about the team way back in the day. I know I'm aging myself. It was my childhood, not you guys. I'm a little older than you guys. Ducks movies.
Ooh.
Anyway, I really like the Ducks team, and I really think they're coming along. Like, to me, they feel like one of these teams that didn't make it, but might be one of the closest to taking that jump, if you will. I think their young core is just about ready. So because of that, I'm taking a home run swing. And because they like their movies, I'm going Roger Lightning McQueen, baby. That is my pick. Big boy. I believe 6'4"-ish. Big frame. Play the body. A lot of skill. The big issue with him, as I'm sure the boys know, is the back injury. Scaring a lot of teams away. So this is definitely one of those where I think the combine might tell you a lot on this prospect because something comes up with that back when they're testing him. I think he could really free fall. But if he's cleared, he could go pretty high here. So I think Anaheim's happy to select McQueen and take that home run swing with the core they already have in place.
Good to hear. McQueen was one of those names I was thinking about for the Islanders before we magically got the first overall pick. And I'm glad we don't have to think about
And he went 10 in our mock, so it makes sense.
Home runs, movies, all of that, not for us, but moving on. And I don't know, it gives me this great warm feeling inside when I see the Pittsburgh Penguins picking at number 11. It's just a beautiful thing. And Prospect On, how are you saving this franchise at number 11?
Well, I don't think I can save the franchise with 11. I'm going to need a little bit more help there.
That's too
But
bad.
to talk about Roger McQueen just for a quick second, he is an awesome player. 6'5", right-handed centers do not come around often. So I just feel like his player comp, I just wanted to say, is Ryan Getzlaff, and he has a cat named Potato. So do what you will with that information. But 11 for Pittsburgh. I really like Brady Martin here. He's one of the best hitters in the entire class. He is rising up boards incredibly, like my subscribers on YouTube. It's just insane. This guy can hit. He's 170 pounds. He can really gain a couple more pounds of muscle. I think if he gets to like 210 pounds, this guy's going to be a killer in the playoffs. I think with the offensive upside, he hits like he's Tom Wilson, and he brings that offensive ability, playmaking, and overall he was productive this year. So I think Brady Martin will be in this range, and Pittsburgh would probably take a player like him.
I'm not going to lie. I kind of want him on the Islanders now, but
he's a guy you'll like.
It just
high floor, I would say too, right, Don?
What was that?
I said like his floor is pretty high. I feel like because of his playing style.
For sure. Like top 9 locked in. I think that he's going to be an NHL player. If at worst, I do not see him as somebody that doesn't make the league. He will be a third line player, in my opinion. He could have second line or maybe like first line, but complementary role to a superstar. Say you have like another Connor Bedard, very light, but you want to put him on the line to protect him. He's going to be one of those guys.
For Gavin McKenna, probably next year when they win the lottery, inevitably.
Oh yeah, that's how you save the franchise.
Yes.
Yes. And, I'm in a great mood right now, and it just gets better as I see the New York Rangers are picking 12th overall. And Mr. Mike Bartner, remember, you have to save this franchise. How are you doing that?
They might not even have this pick. They might
Right.
give it over to the Pittsburgh Penguins. But if they
Right.
keep it, I'm also going to go with a big hitter, Kashawn Atchison on the left side, Barry this season. You look at the highlights of him laying out guys, it is looking like a man against boys, as well as having 26 goals. He is a pretty offensively talented defenseman. When you look at the New York Rangers, they definitely need defense right now. They have like a 1.5 man like defense score right now, Fox and then like Miller, depending on the night. They really don't have much there. So I think you pick up a young defenseman that's similarly to Martin. I can't see him at the bare minimum being a third pair physical presence that gives you the most energetic like 18 minutes a night. So yeah, I'm going with Atchison.
Interesting. Yeah, I actually am surprised the Rangers still have this pick. I thought that it was a lock that it would be traded, given next year's class is supposed to be much
It's an
bigger,
option.
right?
Yeah, it's 48 hours out, so they're just gonna toy with the Penguins and then like decide 2 days out.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on from that, we're going to go to 13th overall, where we are selecting for the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah, so we're at that point in the draft, right, where you feel like so many different guys could go here because it's not the deepest draft. I think you guys would agree with me on that. So I am going to go with player I like, player I don't love, but a player I think has a high ceiling, and a player I could see the Yzer plan going with. Jackson Smith. Might be a bit of a reach. I know he's dropping, but high skilled defenseman. Sometimes gets lost in his own zone, I feel. But he's one of those guys I feel like if he puts it all together, could be a big time steal in this draft. He has a lot of skill, good skater. I sort of see him as a boomer bust, but I think it's boomer bust time in Detroit. So my pick for them is Jackson Smith.
Jackson Smith for Detroit. And moving on to number 14, where the Columbus Blue Jackets will be making their selection.
Yeah, I think that there's multiple players that they could go here, but I'm going to go with Carter Bear. Unfortunate injury, lacerated Achilles. It wasn't as bad as a lot of people thought, and he's already skating out there. I asked him about the injury. He surprised me and said that it was a speedy recovery, that it was not as bad as people thought. And his player comp for himself is a Brandon Hagel. I think that is a fantastic comp for him because he's somebody that plays with a lot of hard skill. He's going to outwork you. He's not the greatest skater. Like his strength isn't a Cullen Potter. It's not. He's not an Oliver Moore. So his skating isn't going to really take him to the next level. It's so that's why the lacerated Achilles injury isn't really high up on my worries for him. He's going to outwork you. So I actually don't think that the lacerated Achilles is going to be as detrimental as a lot of people think. And I think he was already trending to be a top 10 pick going into the playoffs. And obviously, he was injured for Everett right before the playoffs. But this guy is a very skilled player, very humble, going to do really good in those interviews, and I think a team is going to fall in love with him. So, like, personality is a really big thing in this class or in any sport, and I think it's not talked about as much. And Carter Barrett just has that, but one of the best personalities in the entire class. So, 2 years ago, he didn't even think he was going to have this opportunity. So he's working extremely hard every single day. So I think this would be a fantastic pick for the Blue Jackets, who need players that are going to come in very quickly and be a playoff type of player.
Awesome. Yeah, the Blue Jackets, I think, surprised us all this year. So someone who can come in ready for that role definitely would be a help. So now we go all the way to Vancouver, where Mike Bartner will be making his selection.
Okay, you talked a lot about character, personality. I think in a similar vein, I think Braden Coots makes a lot of sense for the Vancouver Canucks, the captain of the Seattle Thunderbirds, very close to Seattle, so I assume that they've got a lot of viewings on him. Yeah, a captain already in his draft year, not the most flashy player, not the highest of ceilings, only 63 points in 60 games this year, but just has a very well-rounded game. And when you look at the Vancouver Canucks, they might have one of the most like disastrous center rooms when looking at Pedersen, who's like objectively like a third line center the back half of that year. Filipino, you don't know what his injuries are going to look like in terms of concussions. Like Pia Suter was their number one center down the stretch there. So you get a guy that's relatively local in Braden Coots, probably not turning into a number one center, but I think you can rely on him either being a low end number two center or one of the best third line centers in the NHL and give you 40 to 55 points a season. Very good defense. And for Vancouver, you really just need stability right now. And I don't even think that there's any like high swing upside kind of guys here. So I think Coots would be a pretty easy pick for them.
Yeah, they definitely need a vibe change in Vancouver. So the personality should play a huge role in that pick. And to finish this off, we're going to go back to Rocco, making the 16th overall pick for the surprising Montreal Canadiens.
Well, I agree with both Don and Mike here. At this point in the draft, you're looking for character, someone with a pretty high floor that you could look at and say, hey, he probably will become a third line center. He might not be that home run pick, but it's a good move. And Montreal's not going far. We know they love their Quebec boys. Justin Carbonneau. I think he's a perfect fit there. Montreal, nice, could be a nice two-way center, something they may need down the road as they begin to make the playoffs consistently. So I think it would be a really nice fit, and I think Montreal would be excited to see him drop there because I think this is a player that probably could go a couple picks earlier. So I think Montreal would be very, very excited to see him there at 16.
Okay. That wraps us up for the mock draft. And now we're going to hop into a Q&A if you guys are all ready for that.
Let's get it.
Okay. So we're going to go right to an Islanders question. What do you guys think a scenario involving Romanov and an Avalanche first to get James Higgins after drafting Matthew Schaefer? Do you think Romanov and an Avs first of
26
for next season? Do you guys think that is enough?
I'll let the boys go first.
Yeah, I don't think that that's remotely close unless he did fall to like 11th or like something ridiculous like that. I really like Romanov, but at the end of the day, he probably is on an actual like, well, any team that's trading him won't be like contending next year, but he needs a new contract too, which isn't too appetizing for a team that's giving up so much to get him. So I think that it probably would have to be Dobson and a first round pick to move into the top 8 that it would require to get Higgins.
I'd pass on that personally.
Understandable.
I think that it would have to be the Avalanche first and next year's first and maybe 42 with an asset coming back along with the pick like 4 or 5, maybe 6. So maybe you guys get like that's a top 5 pick plus a third round pick for 42 and then 2 firsts. Just something to offset. I don't know if it would be like players with the picks because you rarely see that in the NHL these days. So it would be fantastic for the Islanders to get Matthew Schaefer and Higgins. I think the fan base would scream. I mean, if a scenario that almost happened last year was Blackhawks took Artem Levshunov and then tried to trade back in for Ivan Demidov. So I could see similar things happening, and they were going to give up their 2026 first and 2020 and the second round pick in 2026. So that would kind of be similar, but they were also going to be a bottom 5 team.
Yeah, it's one of those things for me. I think you have to put yourself in the shoes of the team trading away the pick, right? Like, how would you feel trading away? I think Higgins is going to go top 5. So if you're trading a top 5 pick, I don't think you really want like this package back that you get Romanov and a first and whatever else. I think you're looking for more of a bona fide player coming back in that deal. Going back a bit, but one deal I remember that was somewhat similar was when I think Lou was still there and he acquired Corey Schneider to the Devils from Vancouver, traded them the first overall that actually became Bo Horvat. So when you think of those type of trades, usually it's one big player can get moved for them. It's hard to intrigue these teams with this sort of package. Like Romanov's a nice player. He's not a trade your top 5 overall pick type player. So I agree with Mike. If it has to be top 5 in order to get there, I think you're probably going to have to move Dobson. But I don't think it's something they end up doing, but I think that's what would have to be offered to even have a chance at it, really.
My personal to this. Actually, Mike, you can go.
I was just gonna say, like, yeah, like throwing the 2026 unprotected pick would be interesting. It would have to be a Western Conference team. We can't risk like potentially giving up a top 5 pick at next year's draft to an Eastern Conference team. That could maybe be appetizing, a first next year in the Colorado first. But yeah, I don't know how feasible it is.
Yeah, I think with when you have a top 5 pick, as you guys have said, like you think you're going to get a star player, even maybe if this is a weaker draft. And I love Romanov, like many Islander fans do, but I think we tend to maybe overrate him a little bit. So I don't think him and another throw at the dartboard next season is enough to get it. I don't think it's going to happen. But I actually want to circle back to Romanov when we wrap up to ask a question about the trade we got to acquire him.
Well,
However,
ask it now.
Yeah.
13th overall.
Don is
this
salivating
is
right
this
now.
is this
Is your
this
question going to
personal.
be?
This
Is your
a personal
question going to be?
No,
Has his value gone up or down? Because he got
No.
traded for 13th overall, Don, when he got traded, Romanov.
Yes, sir. And that was
I
Frank
think his
Nazar.
value is not that high anymore.
no. So here's my question. I don't know why so many fans have such a hard time admitting when you lose a trade. In my opinion, I think Romanov's a good player, but I think we probably lost that trade. My question is, how bad do you think that trade can look in like 5 years?
I think it's going to look really bad for the Habs, who gave up the 66th and 13th pick for Kirby Dach, who's had such unfortunate injuries. I mean, he actually tore his ACL against the Blackhawks. Like, hockey gods are not helping that guy's career out. I really do like Kirby Dach. Not in that draft in 2019. I was crying for Bowen Byram, but obviously he wasn't as good as estimated as well. But I think that the Islanders kind of got off safe with that because they didn't. It. I don't think a lot of people remember that the Habs even or that the Islanders even started out with the 13th pick. Everyone just says the Habs screwed up. So you guys got lucky there. I think Frank Nazar is a absolute stud. You guys saw what he did. He brought home gold. So for the first time in a very long time, if you see Mike Bartner's tweets, look those up. But man, he was awesome. I really like Frank Nazar. Elite Prospects had him ranked near Logan Cooley, and I'm a big Logan Cooley guy as well. So I think that it's more on the Habs, not the Islanders. But yeah, the giving up the 13th pick for a player, I think it needs to be a star. Giving up a top 15 pick in any class, I think that you can just get more value out of a first round pick, a lottery pick.
Yeah, I don't.
Always, yeah, no, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't think like the Islanders probably most likely are going to lose that just because Nazar is going to be the best player. But as long as Romanov is here for the next 6-7 years, and hopefully as we transition to this new era of like Islanders hockey, he plays in somewhat meaningful games. I don't think you're going to look at it in the pantheon of like worst deals in the 2020s. Like at the end of the day, he has been a pretty effective top 4 defenseman. It's not like they also traded him for some like Magic Beans prospect and it didn't work out. They traded for a 22-year-old defenseman that has been solid for them to a degree.
And one last thing on this. If that trade didn't happen, they might not have gotten enough points or more points to fall at 11 to get the number 1 pick. So hockey works very weird. So you guys got Matthew Schaefer or Michael Misa or James Haggins. So hopefully as a Blackhawks fan, James Haggins. But yeah, it's a good trade-off to get Matthew Schaefer.
Yeah, it's also possible that they had some busts that they were going to select if they kept the pick. Like it was no lock with that front office that they were going to select Frank Nazar.
Very true. Very true.
I forget that we also did we also get George in that deal?
I think
it might have been.
And keep in mind, before this deal was made, we were like on the 5-yard line of getting JT Miller, if you remember. Like Friedman tweeted, JT Miller to the Islanders looking likely or whatever he said, fell off, and then they ended up doing the Romanov deal. So there was a lot of moving parts, including after, like Don said, the fact that we traded it to the Canadians and then they flipped it to Chicago. So I think there's so many moving parts that Don's right. They kind of got bailed out.
Yeah, the Islanders were a year removed from the ECF too. It wasn't like they were like entering this heavy retool rebuild, although on hindsight is 2020. But yeah, like the circumstances, it did make some sense to opt for the 22-year-old known thing compared to the 13th overall.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm glad I won't be looking at that sad in 5 years. So we'll move on, and I like this question. So we're I want to ask you guys,
Jack,
how
just
would
say who
you?
it's from. I'm sorry. Say who it's
Oh,
from.
okay. This one's from Kyle. The last one was from Matt. So this one from Kyle. We're asking you guys compare Schaefer to the previous defenseman drafted this highly in the last few years, like Darlene, Power, etc.
Prospect Don, you want to take this first?
So I believe that I actually asked this question or answered this question last time too. So it's a great question. I think that Matthew Schaefer would probably be the second highest graded defenseman to come out since Owen Power, just because of Owen Power's size. It was just, I mean, no. Sorry. He would be Rasmus Dahlin and then Owen Power and then Matthew Schaefer.
Mhm.
But the thing is, I actually would have had Matthew Schaefer over Owen Power just because I wasn't really the biggest believer in Owen Power. Um, that's just me. But the thing is, I think Matthew Schaefer, like Rocco had said, was Miro Hiskinen. I think that that could be his level. I don't think he's a Kale McCarr like his assistant coach said, and he said to me. I just don't see Kale McCarr level. If you get Kale McCarr, that's a top defenseman in the league. Like I think this guy could actually be a top five left-handed defenseman in my opinion. So if you're getting someone like that, I think he has a higher floor and he's very, very young. So his upside case is really good. And he was on the same team as Sam Dickinson, who was a very highly touted player in 2024 defenseman for the Sharks. And on that team where he hurt his collarbone in the 1.5 games, he was actually the best defenseman on that team. So Matthew Schaefer's already ready and he's younger.
Yeah, I'm going to start with the younger part. September 5th birthday, which is crazy. He's 10 days away from being a 2026 draft eligible guy. Talk about Miro Heiskanen. I see shades of like Jake Sanderson as well in terms of just being that fantastic skater. He's such a good skater, and that really stands out when you watch him play. The rest of his game, I think, will develop and catch up to that level of skating. But yeah, he, for me too, would be around Owen Power. I personally was not that high on Owen Power. Actually, Luke Hughes higher than him in 2021. So for me, it is Rasmus Dahlin was like truly a next level. Like what he did in the SHL against grown men, he might be like the best defenseman prospect of the 21st century. You could go that far. Probably is. I'm trying to think of who the hell else would be that high. But yeah, he's definitely a tier below that and a potential franchise defenseman as long as they can properly develop him. And I do think that he is more NHL ready than other people tend to say, despite the age, despite the lack of games. Because as you mentioned, on a Team Canada that was pretty loaded with talent, he was their best player at the CHL U.S. National Team Development Program. He's probably the best player there as well. We didn't get to see the full season. It was only 17 games, but when he played, it was such excellence on display that I do think that he could maybe come into the lineup next season and definitely a year later. He should probably go to college if he's not going to play. I don't like him at the OHL yet again. But yeah, I think as soon as next season, he can be a guy that gives you 20, 21 minutes a night.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. Probably the best prospect after Darlene as far as defenseman. I would like for me, I agree with Mike. Like, I think I would have put Luke Hughes ahead of Owen Power. I think Owen Power got a little bit overrated, probably because of that size. He was already built. And I think what we forget a lot of times with these prospects, if you're built like a truck and you're playing young opponents who aren't fully developed yet, sometimes you look like an absolute monster. Then you get placed in the NHL. Then you get placed in the NHL and you look good, but nothing crazy. Like I think it's fair to say Power's been underwhelming thus far, especially for a number one pick. Is that fair?
Very.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and right now, listen, if you were to select, I would take Luke Hughes over him for sure. I know we're talking about from when they were drafted, but I think the skill set in today's NHL, I'd rather Hughes. So I'd probably put Darlene definitely one, and then Hughes versus Schaefer is actually tougher for me than Power. I definitely put him above Power. I'd put him neck and neck with Schaefer. Let's call him tied. But yeah, I think he's a prospect that probably could crack the lineup. He's got size. He needs to put on a little bit of weight, but he has so much skill. And I think it might be one of these things that you're going to have him in preseason and he might just pop that much that you just have to keep him. It's a fan base that needs a little bit of excitement. You want to fill those seats. And you know what? If you have a number one overall pick, it helps. I'm not going to lie. It's not, you don't want to rush development, but it's going to be part of it. And I do think Schaefer is in the NHL next year. The more I watch him, and the more I understand his skill set, the more I think you want to have your hands on him as the Islanders organization.
And a
Okay.
really underrated part of Matthew Schaefer's game is his the way that he fills the lanes and he blocks shots. His brother was a huge shot blocker and he taught him techniques. I mean, his brother was getting 5 and 6 shot blocks a game. I mean, Matthew Schaefer is somebody that just understands how to block a shot and not screen the goalie. So I think that Matthew Schaefer is a little bit better defensively than Luke Hughes, but that's my
Mhm.
last point.
Not
Yeah,
screen
and
the
just
goalie.
one more thing. Yeah, also on Owen Power versus Luke Hughes. I just looked it up. Owen Power, November 22nd birthday. Luke Hughes, September 3rd. So almost 10 months younger. In that draft year, I feel like people didn't adequately factor that into the evaluation, and I think we should with Schaefer.
And it's so much room to grow, right? Like I think Schaefer has a similar build to Hughes in that he's tall,
Mhm.
lanky, sort of skinny, needs to put on a little weight and will. And as you said, Mike, like if he's not on the Islanders, I don't think there's much left to prove at the junior level. Like he didn't play much, but he was dominating. Like he's just a step above. If he's not on the island, I think they need to find the NCAA route for him. Play against the
Yeah,
big boys.
It was
definitely.
nice to hear that he doesn't screen the goalie while blocking the shot. Sorokin is going to love this guy. Okay, so we got our next question from Ian. And for me, the answer is no. But for you guys, is there any sort of package you would take to trade out of the #1 overall pick?
Order.
I mean, we could any is sort of you know, it's a broad statement because anything, I mean, there's things people could
I'll
offer
edit the
that you're going to
question.
say yes, but
Any sort of realistic package?
Uh,
honestly, I don't I don't really think so because how much like so the San Jose Sharks, for example, they
mhm.
badly need a D-man in that prospect pool. But what are they giving you that makes it worth it? Like if you think, which I do, I think there's a little bit of a gap between Schaefer and Misa, honestly, as far as draft value, draft pick, whatever you want to call it. So, like, unless they're doing a pick swap and offering us a player that's ready right now, I don't even think you think about it. Like, I can't be convinced to trade that pick if you're offering a late first and a second. Like, you're giving me more darts. I want the for sure player. I want the bullseye, if you will, and I just take Matthew Schaefer.
Well,
Yeah,
what
for
if the
San Jose, if it was second overall and then Sam Dickinson, and then say we gave them Colorado's pick or our second this year, I would maybe consider if we're getting a very good high end, maybe top 5 defenseman prospect in return. But yeah, that I don't know. I don't think San Jose would really do that too much as well. It would have to be a sizable amount.
Yeah, I was gonna say Sam Dickinson and a
Mhm.
first, but Mike, man, jeez, you
Beat it
stole
to it.
that. No, yeah, but I stole some of your picks in the mock draft, so you got that
Eh.
one. But I think like say Igor Chernyshov, 2026 Sharks second rounder, or I mean, and a second rounder this year, which would be 33, as well as the second pick. I think that can definitely do it. If
Mhm.
you're going to the Blackhawks out 2026 first unprotected, our 25th overall from Toronto, and our third, and maybe a defensive prospect like Wyatt Kaiser, Nolan Allen was a former first round pick, someone like that. I think that could get it done. You need to stay in the range of James Haggins. No matter what you do, stay in the range of
Mhm.
James Haggins. If you are going to do that and you like James Haggins over Schaefer for some reason, you should trade the pick and get assets. That's the right thing to do. That's how you get value. And that's how you win a lottery draft by taking a player and extracting as much value as you can from that player.
Can I say something too on this? The fact that the Islanders have a new GM, I think makes it a lot less likely that they would even move the pick because if your first big move is trading the #1 overall pick, and God forbid you
Oh
miss
my
on
god.
whoever you select, you're probably getting fired not too long after. So I think Darsh, now that he's got this role, he was in Tampa Bay. He wasn't there when they drafted Hedman, but he saw how they started that core. That was their first piece right after Stamkos. Islanders have some pieces in play. They have some forwards. They could really use that defenseman. I think if you're Darsh, as far as the draft, not everything else, but as far as the draft, I think you play it safe and go Schaefer.
Mhm. Yeah, I think as long as he takes one of the top two, if the one that you don't select ends up being better, it'll be a little bit disappointing, but you won't get killed. If you do take that swing and move back to 3 through 5, that is day one.
I'll be coming after
Immediate
him.
big pressure. Yeah. And I feel bad. I feel bad for James Hagens, honestly, like to come into that situation where he has to see Schaefer and Misa like potentially be better players and go from the hometown kid to what John Tavares has kind of been the last couple of years in Toronto, like the whipping boy.
1.2, I like what you said there. Like you'd kind of, he has to watch Misa and Schaefer. Like that's the one thing I think fans have to be patient with too. Like if you do select the defenseman number one overall, you might see Misa pop right away.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be hard at first, but you do have to be patient because this is like a 3, 4, 5 year thing before you could kind of tell who won the draft. So if Misa pops next year right away and Schaefer takes a little time, I wouldn't hit the panic button.
Yeah, that's a great point. It takes defensemen a bit longer in the NHL to, just get used to everything. And one last question. You kind of answered this already, Don. So you were asked specifically, give me Chicago's offer for the number one pick. It's a direct question. What's the final offer?
I would like to also hear Mike and just his opinion on this too, like what it would take for the Islanders. But I think like multiple first round picks, in my opinion, have to be the case for 2024, 2025 draft. And then maybe even an unprojected pick, like a first overall pick in. If you want a McKenna sweepstakes too, and the Chicago Blackhawks are going to be bad, I think that Michael Misa or Matthew Schaefer is worth trying to get another lotto ticket slip for McKenna. In my opinion, I think those picks are going to be valued very, very highly this year. I think this draft is going to be a weird one when we see a lot of movement from teams like the Habs. They have 2 first-round picks and 3 third-round picks back to back to back, and I just feel like the Blackhawks have 12 picks in the first 2 rounds. They could just throw the bag at the Islanders. But at the same time, the Islanders GM and their regime that they haven't even put all the way together has to decide very quickly, and that's a huge move to make. If they have fallen in love with James Hagens and it's an owner decision and they know that they can market this guy and it's a very similar level of player because this guy was the first overall pick for 4 or 5 months this year, and they still see similarly because what has Matthew Schaefer done? He was the best player for 2.5 games for Team Canada, then he got hurt. He had a very small sample size. That's a lot to put on your new GM. So there might be some whispers in the facility, and if you guys get a good offer on the day, I think it could happen. Nico Harrison traded Luka Doncic for nothing, and then he got the number one pick. Anything could happen in
We're
sports.
trying to run him out of town now.
Yeah. He had to level up his security.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if the GM of the Islanders would want to do that and start off, but if you're getting a great package that you can't refuse, you're going to obviously take it. And a lot of the teams that are in the bottom 5 have so many picks in the next 3 years.
Yeah, I think for me it would have to be an unprotected 2026 or 2027 as well as third overall. Like the 25th overall pick that they have this year from Toronto, it just doesn't move me that much. There's probably a 50% chance that guy's even plays like 300, 400 career NHL games. It could work out, but yeah, I need something where it could really hit and we could get another top 10 pick out of that. I think that is the gap between Misa and Schaefer in that 3 through 6 that we talked about before. Not saying it's a lock that those top two are better than those guys, but I think based on what we've seen and what the scouts are saying, I think it needs to be something with massive, massive potential.
Yeah, I like that we had Mike's take on that because Rocco and I, us Islander fans, will back that up. We know he's looking out for us. So we're going to have one last question here from Rocco.
Yeah, no. Final question. I just wanted to do a little best of the rest. So we picked those 16 guys. Who do you guys, I know you guys cover these prospects all year long. Who do you see outside of the top 16 that didn't get selected as a sleeper in this draft?
Just give me a second. I'm looking at who we still have.
Malcolm Spence, I would say Milton
Ooh.
Gashrin is one of my favorite players.
I love Gashrin as well.
Hell yeah, me and Mike are basically the same person. But Cameron Reed is a good one. Blake Fiddler, I really like.
Colin Potter.
I was waiting on
Based
that
on
one.
his-
Colin Potter. I like him a lot. ASU,
really good skater.
coming up big in the hockey program.
At U18s, he was
Resney.
pretty easily the US's best player.
High skill. That could be a nice sleeper. And I've seen Cullen Potter like 18, and I've also seen him at the very end of the first round. So interesting prospect.
Yeah,
Very
Cameron
small, right?
I think he's like 5'10".
Okay.
See, I got him pulled up.
Well, we'll see at the combine. Right? A lot of these guys are 5'10".
Speaking of small guys, Cameron Schmidt is either going to be like amazing or probably not an NHLer, depending on it. But like he's the ultimate like boomer bust, like late first round kind of guy. Blake Fiddler might be one of the most safest defensemen in this draft at 6'3", already like 200 pounds, just locked down defensively. You're not using like a lottery pick on him, but playoff teams are going to need a guy like that for sure.
Vaslav Nestersil, 6'5", Muskegon Lumberjacks, a very, very good player. He had 4 brothers. His one brother was drafted in the 3rd round to the Red Wings. I think that this guy is really great. He's grown up near hockey. Ivan Ryabkin, his teammate in Muskegon, he had a terrible fall basically from top 10 to maybe out of the 1st round. I really like Jack Ivankovich. Matthew Schaefer said it was the best player he's ever played against. He shut him out during the teddy bear toss game, so they had to throw the teddy bears at the 2-minute mark because they had no excitement there. William Moore is pretty good too for the US NTDP team. I could like spend 7 hours on here. So there's just so many good players. I think that it's just a lot of depth pieces or contributors that you need if they hit. Only a few of them have real star potential, but like Cole McKinney, also at the US NTDP team. I don't know why he fell so much, but there's a ton.
Yeah, last guy I'll highlight just because he had like literally a record-breaking U18s for Sweden. Sasha Boymedian played at BU where he was kind of just thrown down the lineup because they have Cole Hudson, because they have Tom Olander, but a really smooth skating Swedish defenseman at 6'2". Would not shock me one bit if he ends up going top 20, maybe even like late lottery.
All right. Good names there.
All right. Well, thank you guys, Prospect Don and Mike Bartner, for hopping on with us tonight. Their links to their Twitters and YouTubes are in the bio of the YouTube video. They do tremendous work. Give them a follow at the Prospect Don, at Mike Bartner on both Twitter and YouTube, and Rocco and I at Isles House for more content. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me.